Hi, my name is Madeline Briggerman, and I did my literature review over aggression and ADHD in females during childhood and adolescence. So the purpose of my review was to link aggression and ADHD specifically in females, young females. Um, Another reason as to why this is important is because aggression is linked to negative outcomes like delinquency, more specifically, which is why I kind of led to this topic. Um, but mostly, I just wanted to see the difference between aggression in females with and without ADHD generally. Some important variables seen throughout each of the research articles. The first being relational aggression. Um, Relational aggression is the less physical type of aggression, and it deals with more of spreading rumors and gossip and excluding people from play in the context of children. An article that covered this definition specifically was the article by McQuaid. Then we have overt aggression. This is actually the physical type of aggression, which is more of the hands-on approach to aggression and more violent nature. And as mentioned by Zielecki's article, it's most often seen in men. And then we have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD. This is defined as an early development of high levels of inattention and hyperactivity impulsivity, mentioned by the Ohan article. So the relationship between ADHD and aggression is really important in this scenario because without each other, what's the point in studying them? And so their connection kind of comes within peer interactions. So social problems lead to intrusive behaviors. So these intrusive behaviors could be spreading rumors, gossiping, which is quote-unquote relational aggression, and people with ADHD are more prone to these social problems with their hyperactivity and impulsivity. In regards to research methods, most of them articles use child behavior checklist, which can be used by parents or teachers. Most of the articles were the parents and instead use a different report for teachers. The article by Gomez talks about how this is a checklist that relates to child's behaviors so they can help determine deficits, including aggression and attention issues, rather than just one. So it's very helpful in these scenarios. Another method is the anxiety disorders interview schedule for the DSM-5 child and parent versions, also called the ADIS for child and parent version, so the C-P. One of the articles that talked about this was Falk's article, and they kind of described it as a way to include the child in the assessment of their own diagnosis, because these interviews were done separately, so they would do an interview with the child and an interview with the parent, kind of get their anxiety level to get a better understanding. Strengths of the studies. One of the common strengths I saw within quite a few of my studies was the ones with all female samples. So an all female sample is able to show how aggression amidst these youths with ADHD differ between two different genders, because we can see all females, and then there are also ones that have all males, so we can compare the two different research studies. This also can refute the ideas that only boys partake in overt physical aggression, because there will be examples of this overt aggression within these all female samples. And then there would be studies including both parent, teacher, and peer reports. So a combination of all three. Only actually one or two articles did this, and one of them was the Connolly article. In this article, they were able to identify factors of aggression and ADHD in different types of environments. So how they interacted with their peers in school versus outside of school, and kind of how the parents saw them interact with others while they were at home. Limitations in this realm of topic. A big one I saw was that I struggled to find some articles that had just a focus on ADHD and aggression. A lot of them wanted to veer off the road and add other focuses in there. Like the article from Stephen Becker, it kind of discussed ODD, so oppositional defiant disorder, and then ADHD was kind of a tag along. It kind of did it together. So a lot of the information was on this ODD and ADHD rather than their sole focus being ADHD. So you don't get as much solid information in that realm. Although I did find a lot of helpful things in these articles. Another limitation were the studies that only used parental reports of aggression. Although there were only a couple of them, the example being the Stephen Becker and the Falk articles. Only getting this kind of home view or how the parents see them interact with others isn't going to give you a full enhancement of their entire aggression, because kids tend to act different when they're around their parents and when they're around their own family and teachers, because they have different standards of how they want them to act. So with parents might be more lenient when teachers more strict, and vice versa. So they're not going to have the same reports of aggression between the children. So it's good to get both sides. After going through and studying and comparing and contrasting these different articles, I came to the conclusion of two really specific directions for future research that I think could help in this subject. And one of them was to separate symptoms by male and female. A lot of what I've seen in regards to aggression is them separating overt aggression and separating relational aggression by gender, which isn't necessary, but I think it comes more with this in the case of ADHD. So like maybe in the DSM getting different diagnoses, and the way you can do that is by setting up a research where you got a group of females and a group of males, and kind of test their ADHD symptoms through multiple different tests. It could include the CBCL, or the ADIS, for parent and teacher versions, or in a combination of both, just to kind of see what are the differences within the genders, because the research articles that I went over in this review kind of hinted at the idea that there could be differences. Another is longer length of studies for females. I covered both childhood and adolescence, but I think that it would be helpful if there was a study out there that covered these females with ADHD and how their aggression changes from when they're considered children all the way up to adolescence. See how they change, how they interact differently throughout those years, because a lot of the studies that I covered were short range studies rather than over a long period of time. So in conclusion, just to repeat, my intention of this literature review is to see the differences in aggression among female children and adolescents with ADHD. And it's important because a lot of times aggressive females are seen as delinquent when really they just kind of have this more impulsive nature to them. And it's kind of important for everybody to understand the reasons we see these females in this way. And I have my references.